I felt God say that He's less worried about what I'm doing than He is about who I'm becoming. And in all of that, my encouragement to people would be to ask the question, like, who am I becoming and who is God calling me to be, rather than what am I doing? Because I think God can use you where you're at. Yes, I do believe He places specific gifts and callings in your heart, and He wants to use that to, build His kingdom and build His church. But I think that's less important than who you're becoming. I think declaring is a tool that we hear about but don't use enough. And declaring includes prayer, it includes journaling. My best way, now I'm speaking a lot, but I'm not always the noisiest person. But like, if I had to bring my journals and show you guys the things I wrote to God, they would fill this table. But that's because it was a version of me declaring, and getting out. Yeah. So I'd encourage you to get those thoughts out of your head. In football and in sport, there's a concept called marginal gains. So it talks about the 1% improvements that you make every day that over a lifetime add up to a lot, right? And so back then in the academy I was in, which was a Christian-based academy, one of the concepts they had was marginal gains. And basically what they convinced us is that it might look like a pretty daunting task ahead of you. It might look impossible for you to be a professional footballer one day. But if you can commit to finding the 1% marginal gains in your everyday, and this is super practical, this is outside of Bible and everything, but I'm sure there's a biblical principle that parallels alongside.
Hi everyone, my name is Balisa and welcome to another podcast. On today's conversation, we will be joined with the Life Campus crew and we will be speaking to Jesse and Wanga just about practical life skills and anything that any of you and the Life Campus people can learn from him. Thank you.
Awesome, cool guys. This is obviously my Life Campus class, and I've got the privilege of inviting Jesse and having a conversation with Jesse, with you guys and the Life Campus crew. So I'm really excited for that. But there is a few things I wanted to say just on the get-go to you guys, is that actually in these moments, we'll get out as much as we are willing to receive, as much as we are willing to put in. You guys have seen me a lot of times with Jesse, walking around, having conversations, and trying to navigate life and all of that. And I want to say, like, he's been one of the most consistent people I have ever met. Obviously love you a lot. You are very, very consistent. You don't feel like that. You feel like you fall short on everything, but you're incredibly consistent. But I value your perspective and I value your advice. And I don't just say that as in like, I think what you say is really cool. It's because I put it into practice. There's been moments with you guys where I've come to teach or whatever and went, these are actually the things I've been processing with Jesse and working out with him. So it is quite a selfish thing for me because I do think I'm sharing with you guys one of the very best human beings in my life. And I say that to say, he will say a whole lot of things. He's not like gonna stick to a script, but just ask God and receive what you can receive, because these moments have shaped me in ways that are incredible, and I apply what you say. Like, the most important resource I think you've taught me to have, and you've had your own lives and journey, is community and friendship. And you're very consistent in that. I do want to honor you as well. Because when I was thinking of this conversation, I went, what is the one thing, or if, I would say to honor Jesse. And the word that came to me is that you are faithful, incredibly faithful. You are wise because you ask the best questions, but you are very faithful. You faithful in the little, you are faithful in a lot. I've seen you faithful in your soccer career, and I've seen you faithful in church. I've seen you faithful in all these different areas. And I think that's what has made you so fruitful in your life. You carry a lot of fruit, and we can see that. You're faithful in your character. You've got one of the best characters a human being can have. You're faithful in your craft. You're committed to the process. And thank you for your faithfulness. We get to live in that. So, this is Jesse. Now, I don't even I look at you and my eyes start almost wanting to tear up because...
Likewise, you didn't set me up.
I wasn't also planning on being like that. But give us, they don't know you, I know you, but give us an elevator pitch.
Okay.
Who's Jesse?
Well, first of all, thank you for honoring me, man. In the fear of diluting or making whatever you just said be forgotten, I'm not going to say too much, but
don't.
that's incredible. Thank you for honoring me that way. So, guys, many of you kind of know me. Some of you know part of my story, but if I had to get a elevator pitch for you guys, it would be, my name is Jesse Don, born and raised in Cape Town. I grew up in a church home, so was very familiar with going to church and loved the Lord from a young age. Only really got saved when I was about 13 or 14, but only really came to walk with Christ personally probably when I moved to Joburg in 2019, 2020, around that COVID time. Although I thought I had a relationship with Christ and was walking with him a lot sooner. Around the ages 2 to 4, I was apparently a really naughty kid, and there's tons of stories of me like just creating havoc in my family, at school, in the shops. And because my parents didn't know what to do with me, they decided to take me to the local soccer club and to kind of throw me on the field and see if training would get rid of some of my energy, and in doing so help me be a better behaved kid. And luckily for them, and I'm actually grateful as well, it worked. And since the age of 4, I was playing soccer, and that's kind of all I ever knew. I went to a specific school, so that I could leave school kind of early and finish my matric online so that I could sign professionally, which then leads to what I did for probably the last 8 years on and off, was play professional football, which is a big part of my life, and I think it will probably come up. Although I don't like bringing it up in other spaces, it will come up in the story today. And had the privilege of playing professional football, and I still can't believe how gracious God was to me in allowing me to do that. So.
Yeah, the Donator.
The
That's what the
Donator.
commentators called you. Okay, maybe give me. It's tough. This is a tough question. I can already tell you. Give me 5 memories or moments. If you could think of just 5, don't give them to me in detail.
Okay.
That make Jesse who he is.
Sure.
What would you say those 5 are?
This is not really a moment, but a key
Memories.
Yeah, formational part of Jesse is being a homebody, like a loving family.
Yeah.
So family, growing up in a family of 6 plus, we fostered a boy. So I have also a brother who lives in Cape Town. Yawara, he's the real guy. You're honoring me. He's the real guy.
Yeah, he's better than you.
So, but family of 7 in a small house. So family is a big, big, big thing for me. Then sport. So yes, I love soccer, but even if I don't play soccer, I have to stay busy. So for me, keeping fit and healthy is not just because I think it's good for me. It's actually something I need. If I don't wake up and go and do my run, whatever it is, then Kels, my wife, complains that I've got too much energy. So that would be another one. My natural tendency is not to talk too much about soccer, but it is a big part of my journey. So I'd say 2017, when I was allowed the opportunity to leave matric and sign professionally, was a big moment for me. It was the culmination of many years of hard work. But I'd actually say before that, probably the biggest moment was in 2014, in my under 15 soccer year. I was put into the B team. So I was told I was not good enough. And that changed something in me. I realized very quickly that although I was one of the better footballers in my community, I wasn't on the trajectory that I wanted to be in order to, do what I wanted to do, which was to be a professional footballer. So if I think back, actually, it's probably the most pivotal moment of my upbringing was that under 15 year when I was put into the B team. And then I'm going to make it 6, okay? So number 5 is coming to urban life. Absolutely pivotal for me in many ways. And then number 6 is getting married to my beautiful wife, Kelsey. Yeah. There's many other moments, but I think for the sake of the question, I'll keep it at that. COVID was also a big one for me. A really sort of identity digging period of time where, me and the Lord kind of had a bit of a wrestle.
Okay.
But,
Told me a lot of the good. What about the bad ones? They're not so good. So I give you another 3 or 4.
Okay. I would say, funny enough, and this is context that may or may not be helpful, but I had a really uneventful childhood. Like I sometimes felt guilty that I didn't come from a home where there was any sort of brokenness. My parents love each other. Our family loved each other. There were no deaths in the family. Nobody struggled with cancer or any diseases. So from the ages of, let's say, until I left the home at 18, honestly, I don't remember any moments where it was like, oh man, life is tough.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like we had seven of us in a household where my parents probably weren't earning as much as they wanted to, so finances were always tight, but we were still blessed. Like God still looked after us. So that's the context. Post 18, I think moving to Joburg was actually a deeply depressing moment for me. Coming to a new city with no church at that time, no friends, no family, into an environment where it's cutthroat. In the football world, they just want results. So, new teammates, new culture, and the knock-on effect of that was deeply depressing, actually. Even at the time, I didn't know it was a form of depression. That'll be number one. Number two, in April of 2025, Carlson and I unfortunately lost our son at 26 weeks. So he was stillborn, which was extremely tough. And we can get into that story as much as we need to. And then number three, unfortunately in the same year, which is also last year, 6 months later, my dad passed away. So last year was a tough year.
Yeah. Okay. I wanna go back to your maybe a softer start. I know because I've got context. So a whole lot of your identity was basically in what you did in football. Yeah. How long did you do?
How long did I play professionally?
Yeah. I mean, at the height you were in Bafana, you don't want to boast, but you could have been in America. Yeah,
so funny enough to that, like watching the World Cup this time around was pretty tough. I didn't think it would be, but it was pretty tough because I at times, and probably even now, I wished I was there. So anyway, I think so. I signed my first professional contract in 2017, and then I stepped away from playing in 2024. So that was like a 7-year stint, and then I came back to playing after God opened some opportunities for me for another season. So it's like 8 years total, and I've just stepped away again.
After what I want to get into is it formed a lot of your identity.
Yeah. 100%.
Or who you are, how you saw yourself.
Yeah.
And how do you wrestle with that?
Yeah.
Where are you now? But maybe rather, how do you move from, this is a huge part of my identity to, do you miss, I'm sure you miss it.
Yeah, I think so. I'll say I'm not there yet. There's this phrase that I don't 100% agree with, but I get the principle. And I've heard, I don't actually know which pastor says it, but it's same devil, new level.
It's probably Stephen Furtick.
Could be Stephen Furtick, yeah. I think it is Stephen Furtick. Same devil, new level. And not that football is the devil. Like there's nothing wrong with football. I believe it was and is still a beautiful tool that God is using for, or allowing me to touch lives through. So it's an amazing opportunity, and sports is great. But the reason why I share that phrase is because there were many points in my life where I guess it started with realizing that there is an idol there of sorts. Yeah. But then from that point of kind of identifying it, I think probably in 6-month increments, I was reminded that like, actually, I'm not done with dealing with this thing. And I still sit here today where I shared with you guys watching the World Cup for me was pretty tough. And I did not see that coming. And that's not because I didn't do the work, but because actually this identity story, and I believe actually identity is core to the Father's heart about who we are. Like he wants to,
for sure.
And because of that, the enemy wants to get in between who we are and who God's calling us to be, or who we think we are. Anyway, all that to say, there's been, I can think, so COVID 2020 was probably the first time where I could identify as myself without anybody else that there's an idol in my life and it's football. And again, it wasn't to say that football was a bad thing, but I realized that I would do anything to make football happen. So I would move to who knows where in order to make football happen. I would become friends with who knows to make football happen. I would, sacrifice community, friendships, potential marriages. Like I guess at that time was more girlfriends, and I would sacrifice everything, family, in order to make this thing happen, which we celebrate. And I honor sports people who do that. I realize it comes with a lot of sacrifice, but at the same time, man, what comes to mind now is, what good is it to to win the
In
world.
the whole world and
lose your soul.
It's a hectic.
Yeah,
place.
right. But it is. So that's what comes to mind now. So anyway, back to your question. I think I realized in 2019, 2020 that this was something I need to deal with, and the kindness of God is that it's not a.
Does it happen? Like you go, football is no longer an idol. Now I move on. Or
No, I thought that many times. Is what I'm trying to say, and I got that wrong, and I'm still getting it wrong. Is that this identity, not crisis, but this journey of identity is not like an overnight. You know, there were many times I was like, "Oh, cool, I've dealt with this. Like it's in the past." You know, and Kals can even talk to it. It's like we have conversations that often become the same conversations every year around the same thing, which is football, because we think we're past it, but actually it's this ongoing process. You know, it's the same devil, just at a different level. And like I said, I think the enemy wants to attack our identities. So it's going to be a continuous spiritual battle. But in that, man, God has been really kind. He's not rushing me through it. I don't feel condemned by God. I don't feel.
What are the identity struggles like right now that you feel when you think about football? Let me throw one. Do you ever think I'm a failure because I didn't make it? Like how do you frame not being in the World Cup in a practical way? Because I think a lot of us struggle with these things.
Sure. So I think there is and I'm a competitive person, and part of the reason why I was able to get where I was able to get was because I hated when people beat me in anything, right? So for sure, on some level, there is an element of feeling like a failure. Even though I knew that the decisions I made were never because I wasn't good enough, but was always because I was holding on to what I believe God said. And people thought I was crazy. And I didn't always, even when I held on to what I believe God said, which in turn resulted in me kind of stepping away from football, I subconsciously was hoping that God would somehow turn the story into like, okay, you can hold on to what God's saying, but he's going to work it for good. And for me, I thought good would be, I'll go to the World Cup one day. But for God, working it for good has looked completely different, and it's so much better than I could ever imagine. But I'd say the biggest feeling for me actually is just kind of feeling lost, And I'm sure I'd imagine you guys can relate with that. So I pursued this from the age of 4 up until, let's say, 18, 17 when I turned professional. That's, 14 years, and then 8 years. So it's 22 years of my life playing something, and that being the thing. Like there's nothing else, I always try to do well at school, and I didn't like drop out of school or anything, but like all my eggs were in one basket,
I'm a dropout.
I wasn't coming at you there, bro. But you can imagine, so I didn't anticipate this, and it's actually, I guess, unearthed a lot of passions and desires in me now to try help people who might be in the same shoes, but I didn't realize how lost I would feel, And that also again speaks to identity, because
help people here in this room that are feeling they are lost. It might not be football. Maybe they've put so much in one area of their life, and we're going, hey man, I feel what you're saying. I feel confused. I feel like I missed a part of my career, my future. Maybe it's relational. Maybe it could be anything. Help us.
Yeah, I'll say there's a few things that come to mind. A is we got to believe that God can do more in a moment than we can do in a lifetime. And I think that takes us from trying to control our careers and trying to control our futures to saying, okay, God, whether this is your will or not, I know that if it is, you can make it happen. So I'm not holding on to what I think you are going to give me, but I'm saying, God, if it's your will, you can do it. You can, and he can. But at the same time, sure, there's lots of things that come to mind from my journey.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Do you guys have any questions for you in that area of feeling lost? Like you missed it, failing, not getting it right?
I have one.
Yeah.
So it's more so about the failure. You mentioned that when you were 15, they put you in the B team for soccer, and that was like a pivotal moment for you. And you felt like you were not good enough because you were working so much to become a professional. So like, what reassurance did you give yourself that like, I can still do this? Like, what were you telling yourself to keep pushing forward?
Yeah. To be honest, it wasn't even a reassurance. It was, so I think I always believed it was possible. But the difference for me in that moment was, So this is my candid take on confidence. Confidence is not this like whimsical, I believe I can do something. Confidence is proving to yourself that you can do it. So I, at that point, was like, I got to do whatever I can do to convince myself, and in doing so, convince those around me that I'm good enough to be where I want to be. So the shift wasn't mentally, it was a mental shift, but the biggest shift was, like, I got to work harder than everybody else. I got to wake up earlier and hit the gym. I got to get to training an hour earlier and put in extra sessions.
Just wait a moment. Wait. But that thing you're saying, like proving to myself that I can do it.
Yeah, that I'm good enough.
And how do you prove to yourself you can do something? I get like we all for most of us, at least let me say for me, I live for like I want to prove to people I can do something.
Sure.
But before I prove to others, how do I what's the internal talk you are having to yourself to build that confidence and saying I'm capable, I can? Because I think one of the biggest struggles any of us have is actually we feel like frauds in our own minds. We feel like we're trying to put an act. We feel like we're trying to do stuff and all of these things, but internally we feel like I can't. So how do you get to root that confidence in I can do, I'm capable?
I think part of it is a mental battle, and I think we have to be aware that this war is not flesh and blood, right? It's a spiritual battle. We are fighting against intrusive thoughts and all these things, and being aware of that and surrounding yourself with people who can speak into your life and encourage you is important at like face value. But I'd say for me, and it's funny that Wanga kind of celebrated this in me, which I don't think has been celebrated the way you did, but for me, a core principle of how to build confidence is just by being consistent. So I believe that showing up every day. So one of the mantras that I love to live by is I would rather be consistently good than occasionally great. And I think confidence is built in that like everyday, step by step. So in football and in sport, there's a concept called marginal gains. So it talks about the 1% improvements that you make every day that over a lifetime add up to a lot, right? And so back then in the academy I was in, which was a Christian-based academy, one of the concepts they had was marginal gains. And basically what they convinced us is that it might look like a pretty daunting task ahead of you. It might look impossible for you to be a professional footballer one day. But if you can commit to finding the 1% marginal gains in your everyday, and this is super practical, this is outside of Bible and everything, but I'm sure there's a biblical principle that parallels alongside. If you can commit to consistently show up every day and find those 1% improvements.
Okay, give me those. What are those for you right now?
Right now, honestly,
it will help us figure out what are those consistently good things we should be thinking about.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a very vulnerable one, but and it's kind of unrelated. But for me at the moment, consistently showing up in the morning in my quiet time has been a massive wrestle. So as I shared with you guys, last year was quite tough, and it led to me in some ways putting a bit of a hand up between myself and God and saying, hey, like I'm a bit hurt. I don't really want to talk to you. And I've had to now, before I even feel like I want to, put in the discipline of consistently, okay, God, I'm still going to spend 30 minutes with you every morning, or I'm still going to spend 15 or whatever it is. So that's one way, like at the moment, even if my mind can't see it or doesn't feel it, my heart doesn't even feel it, I'm committing to make the decision that I'm going to consistently show up, because I believe that there's a principle of, building that habit that I might not feel or might not even see any change right now, but 10, 15 years down the line, I'll look back and go, sure, that really compounded, That's one. I'd say then another one for me is what I'm finding quite difficult, and this is perhaps helpful or not, but adopting the same mindset that I had with football to other areas of my life hasn't been easy. So football for me, I find it really easy to work hard at. And I'd say it's something I'm passionate about. I think sometimes we get passion, let me not say wrong, but people have different opinions. Some people think passion is like, being emotional, and some people will talk from stage and get passionate. I don't believe that's passion. I believe passion is like what are we willing to suffer for, right? So I was passionate about football. So I was willing to suffer for it. I'm passionate about Kelsey, my wife, so I'm willing to suffer for her. I'm passionate about church, so I'm willing to suffer for it. But I struggle to take that same mindset into my career right now, And I'm slowly having to learn, how do I be passionate about a 9 to 5 in corporate? How do I be passionate about the friends that I have around me? How do I be passionate about Wanga that speaks so highly of me, and I feel like sometimes I don't, check up on him or So that's another place where I'm going, I need to build confidence, because right now I'm not confident that I can do it, but I need to build confidence by showing up consistently every day. For example, in my 9 to 5, saying, if in football I would wake up 2 hours before everybody else, or I would go to training 1 hour earlier, why am I not doing that in my 9 to 5, and that's a shift that I've had to make. So
it's, guys, I'll ask a lot of questions. So forget that there's cameras, and then if you want to jump in somewhere, you can also just jump in, because my brain is racing as you're going, and I'm trying to be as practical as I can. So if you put your hand up, I'll stop talking and ask. So don't worry too much about that. If you're finding a gem, you use the word mindset and mind shift a lot.
Yeah.
How do you shift your mind?
So I feel like I have to give more context, and I apologize if because this was kind of like an unprepared, I really want to share from the heart.
Together,
I apologize if it's all over the place. But one of the biggest shifts for me as a man, and I think all young men struggle with this at some level, is the connection between our head and our heart. And I think I'm realizing that, a mind shift is important, but it's God looks at the heart. I'm reminded of David, where it says, like, everybody looked at outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. And in this season, I felt God look at the heart, look at the heart, look at the heart. And the reason I say that is because I'm quite a head-driven person. Like, I like to think, I overthink things way too much. Sometimes I feel intellectual, I feel clever, and that's all in the mind, right? But God, what he's really interested in is the heart. So it's funny, I say mind shift, but I think actually what God is looking for is a heart shift, and heart posture. And one of the things I wanted to say when it comes to the career element, just circling back. So I spoke about kind of A, trusting that God can do more in a moment than you can in a lifetime. But B, if you're chasing after something, you feel like God has spoken it. And this is one of the difficulties, I think, of being a young person is learning what God's voice sounds like, and then being able to pursue and walk faithfully in the direction you believe God is calling you. But what happens often, has happened with me, like I said, I was wrong many times in football. I thought I dealt with things that I hadn't. But I really believe that in that, God honored my heart posture. So, which is why I'm trying to make the difference here between mind shift and heart posture. So in those moments, I think I had a mind shift, right? In those moments where I had gone, okay, I've identified there's an idol in football, and I love this game, but I want to, be more than just a footballer. There was a mind shift, but in that, God was not as concerned with my mind shift as he was with my heart posture. And even at the times when I got it wrong, I believe, and I've seen God honor my heart posture more than me trying to think my way out of things, So to your question, I would encourage young people, especially when it comes to hearing God and pursuing what you believe God has for you, and then perhaps being disappointed because what you thought would happen didn't happen. And I know exactly what that feels like. I believe that if you believe that God has said something, and earnestly, humbly, from a place of surrender, you go, God, I really believe this is what you're saying, and you pursue it and it still doesn't work out, I believe God will honor your heart posture in that. So for me, for mind shift, remind me what the exact question was again?
No, you've basically answered it. Because
I think heart posture is more important than mind shift, that way. Yeah.
So if I'm an overthinker, how do I shut down the things that's going on in my head and listen to my heart? And how do I know that my heart is telling me to do this, other than me following what I'm just hearing in my head?
Yes.
So can I add on to that?
Yeah, go for it.
To even link with the consistency thing. Because I think one of the crippling things is around what she's saying. I'm an overthinker. I want to be consistently good. Yeah. But it all just lives in my head. In my heart and in my head, I am the most consistent person I can be. Yeah. But I don't follow through on my actions. So how do you make that switch?
Yeah.
Or have you never struggled with that?
No, I definitely have. But I think what I'm realizing is it's a connection, right? So I know I'm talking now about heart posture being more important than mind shift. Or let's call it heart being more important than head, which is not the case actually. I do believe that God has created us to know for those two things to work. So what I'd say first is that it's not an either or. It's not like your heart has to, or your head has to listen to your heart, or your heart has to listen to your head. I think they need to work together. And this is personal revelation, so it's not theology, but something I felt God speak to me. So in a season where I was kind of call it flirting with stepping away with football. Things weren't going the way I had hoped, but at the same time I was also flirting with Kels, and we were going to get married.
Yeah. Crazy season.
I'm going to shift gears here. I'm going to talk about my marriage quickly because I think it's
Go for it. It's great.
So when I first met Kelsey, I immediately knew that there was like a connection and chemistry, and I really liked her, but it was head knowledge. It wasn't heart knowledge. And for a long time I was like, God, I don't know what it is, and I felt hesitant. Like, I feel like I love this woman, but I don't know, like it's in my head, not in my heart. And what I started to do in conversations with people is start to, like, what was in my head, actually declare it. And I really felt like in that season, what was in my head went into my heart, not by me trying to think it through, but by declaring. So it's almost like this weird principle of like, from your head to your heart isn't direct down, it actually has to come out to go into your heart. And I wonder if, as a young person, one of the ways you can be combating the overthinking is actually to declare, like, okay, God, this is what I'm hearing in my head. So I would say, God, look, I'm struggling with, this is what I'm struggling with, right? And then I would, into that situation, declare, but this is what I believe, And I know it sounds cliche, because a lot of people say it, but I really believe it was revelation for me that, hey, actually, I don't connect my head and my heart by just thinking harder. I connect my head and my heart by declaring into my circumstances, into my situations, and by doing that, it makes it into my heart, if that makes sense. So I'd say, because at the same time, the heart is deceitful above all else. And I think even with football, I think there were some idols in my heart that God had to deal with. But again, I would come back down to heart posture. So even if it's in your heart and your head, I think it matters less than where your heart is in it, as in, okay, God, I'm trying to follow your will, I'm trying to follow your way. Would you lead me and guide me in this, But I think declaring is a tool that we hear about but don't use enough. And declaring includes prayer, it includes journaling. My best way, now I'm speaking a lot, but I'm not always the noisiest person, but like if I had to bring my journals and show you guys the things I wrote to God, like they would fill this table. But that's because it was a version of me declaring, and getting out. Yeah. So I'd encourage you to get those thoughts out of your head. And then I guess trust God with the rest. I think
it is. It is one of the best habits. Warren taught me back then was journaling and being able to go, actually, God, is this what I really believe about myself? You speaking it out. There was a season we went through a book called Gospel, and it had all these 4 prayers that we should pray. And I remember writing it on my mirror, and it was like, I think if I even access the archives, I can even still be able, because it just became part of who I am. Yeah. God, as you have been to me, I will be to others. I'll measure your love according to the cross, not, and every single day, you say those things, and then you eventually go, oh, actually, I believe that. That's who I am. And then your heart starts to align. There's power in the tongue. Your words create your world.
Yeah. And it's funny, to make it super practical, to speak to the identity, right? And the identity we pick up along the way. So I can remember, and I can probably recite it to you right now, but in the academy I played in, which was honestly an amazing academy, Christian-based, and the founders are amazing men, there was a creed we used to say. And we used to repeat it at every training session. Yeah. And now in hindsight, I'm only thinking out loud now, I wonder if part of my identity was formed in those moments where I was declaring over myself. I'm trying to think how it went. I have a dream to play football with the very best and to beat the best. Yeah. I'll chase that dream today and every day until it becomes my reality. Sure. Millions have the same dream, but while they're dreaming, I am training. While they're making excuses, I'm perfecting my skills in my body. Deep chat. While their coaches push them, I push my coaches for more. I make sacrifices they won't make. When they're training, I'm just getting started. One day, we will meet on the pitch, and when we do, I will win. So I'm just saying it as an example. Like,
it's great.
What we declare is powerful.
What you declare becomes your... But but there's the thing, you have to consistently do it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So I think part of the identity I picked up along the way was because of what I was declaring over me. And it wasn't even a bad thing, it was a good thing. Anyway, but Sarah, I think you had a question. Sorry.
Okay, so for me, it's mostly like, okay, I know everyone says trust God, but how does that look like when God is silent and you're waiting patiently? How do you keep trusting? And like you named all the struggles you went through, like the losses you had and the change of direction, different lenses. So how do you keep trusting if God is silent?
Yeah, I think if I'm honest, and it's probably not the answer you're looking for, but I think trust is a decision, and I'll tell you why. So I think the three big biblical concepts we sometimes get like intermingled is faith, hope, and trust. And this is how I define them and how I feel God has shifted my mind and my theology around them. I'll say hope is believing that God can, like he's able. What I said in the beginning, he can do more in a moment than we can do in a lifetime. That's hope. Hope is God can. Faith is declaring that he will, like he's going to do it, because I know his nature, he's going to do it. Trust is the most difficult one. Trust is saying, but even if he doesn't, And I think that's a decision you have to make. And I think we need to be hopeful and say God can. We need to have faith and say, like, I believe he will. But then we got to make that really difficult decision. And this has really tested my character. But that trust is to say, even if, I believe you can, I believe you will, but even if you don't, it's not going to change what I believe about you. It's not going to change the promises. It's not going to change my identity. So that's probably the only thing I could leave you with. And trust it's a difficult thing, but it's a decision to say, okay, God, even if I don't see what I was hoping to see, even if things don't end the way I hoped, I will believe that your character remains steadfast. Your character remains good. Yeah. You're a good father.
Yeah, I think if there's another thing I would say about you that I admire amongst a whole lot of things.
You got more to say, bro? You already said everything.
I know, but you've helped me a lot in life, is when you use that word trust. I was getting my phone now because I wanted to look up a scripture, but it's Isaiah somewhere. My phone is on thing, so I can't find it. But it's those who trust in the Lord. They will renew their strength. Yeah. They'll soar on wings. Yeah. They'll walk and not faint. Something like that.
My dad's favorite verse.
Yeah. So, but that word can be interchanged with wait. So some translations are those who wait on the Lord.
Yeah.
To come full circle, you are probably one of the best examples of waiting. Like, if I can put waiting in a person, it would be Jesse, because I've seen you wait in trust or whatever the thing is for God's promises, but you are very proactive in your waiting. There's even a situation right now that I'm thinking of that I won't say anything about.
Yeah.
But you are like an incredible example of waiting. If you wanted to use a different picture that you guys can understand and remember, is Winnie's story. And you think of her trust. She trusted God. God spoke, there's this, but she's not just chilling and say, yeah. One day when she goes, there's an action and there's a movement in what she's doing. And sometimes it's, I trust you, God, but what is in my hands right now? Yeah. What can I show up for consistently? I remember even with Zach, I remember that season. Like, I was like, Jesse, please don't serve, don't do anything, just stay at home. But he's waiting and he's trusting God for his healing and his restoration, but he's still involved in church. He's still consistent. And I'm not in any way saying work harder. It's something that God was doing in him. That's why I say it's such a... If I were to jump into that question, I think you trust God for the promise, but God trusts you with what's in your hands. Sure. So what do you have right now? And you go, okay, what am I going to do with that? I've got Life Campus. I've got friends, I've got this. Sure, so God has trusted you with something. It's a thing like, I'll tithe when I have 1 million rand. No, God gave you 10 rand, tithe 1 rand. Yeah. So it's, what do you have right now? Because then you'll step into more of that, I think. And I've seen you do that so well.
Thanks, man.
I have a question, actually.
Can I take Lungile and then come back to you?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, this question is for Jesse. So, how was it for you transitioning or accepting that football profession might not be what God is calling you to do? How was it after believing in?
Yeah. Honestly, one of the most, up until last year, so like I said, I stepped away in 2024, and that year, until last year, that year was the worst year of my life. So I stepped away from playing football, and I think on two elements. Transition is difficult, right? And this is not just football related, this is just transition related. In transition, you're stepping away from something and you're stepping into something. And so you're dealing with where you've come from and the identity that you may have had in that place. But at the same time, you're also stepping into the new, into the unknown, into a season where you may feel lost. And that's exactly how I felt. So it was incredibly difficult. And this is where I celebrate my wife, who in the deepest, darkest of moments for me.
Shout out to Kels.
Yeah, shout out to Kels. Was alongside me, didn't rush me. And at the same time, very practically as a man, so I went from earning a comfortable footballer salary to having to really hustle to just try and make ends meet, to earning probably 3 times less than what Kels was earning at the time, and feeling like a failure in some ways, because as the man, I'm meant to be able to provide, and I couldn't. And again, she was just so gracious in allowing me to walk that season out. But yeah, I would say it was extremely difficult. I think there was elements of me being really disappointed, of course, and frustrated with God, because I had felt like this was going to be, the next 10 years of my life. But then there was also just a very harsh reality that like life moves on, and I know it sounds harsh, but it's important to know that life does move on, and we gotta keep going. Now, that's not to say we shouldn't deal with the stuff we have. Like, we need to deal with it, with the trauma, with the grief, with whatever else it may be. But sometimes the best thing you can do is actually just to continue like living your life, and show up. And we often joke. So when Zach passed away last year, because I was working on a basis where if I didn't work, I didn't earn. I had to go back to work, So we had a period where we grieved and we mourned, and I was there for my wife. But life forced me to, get back, into the swing of things. And the initial getting back into the swing of things, it feels difficult, but actually it's good for you. So to the transition, incredibly difficult. And like I said, it was one of those moments where I feel like I've moved past it, but maybe I haven't. And now watching the World Cup, I'm like, okay, I thought I'd moved past this, but actually there's still some hurt. So the transition happened then, but I'm still walking through it now, if that makes sense.
And because, again, sorry to jump in, but I've got context, and you'll skip through some important things of your story. But you in that transition, you really had God. You felt like this was a God thing. This was what God, because just so you guys know, Jesse's story isn't he became a bad footballer and then left football. It was like there was options here. I don't know if I can say places.
No, you can go for it.
There was, moved to Stellenbosch, but God had already started talking to you about build, plant, stay and plant. So you stayed in Joburg, which, there was a genuine, and it was confirmed in community. I remember we had conversations. There was Kevin and Rebecca, and there was all of those things.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got this better offer, but God is saying this. How do these match up? And you trusted, and you went with what you believe God was saying. And I think part of that transition was he had God. Like, I don't want you to downplay.
No, that's definitely. And I can give more context to that.
You can. It's your story.
Let me give it a little bit more, because I think it might be helpful for people. So, and I guess I'm actually kind of disappointed I didn't mention it, but I think I just sometimes get so practical. But so God had spoken already in 2021 around the stable plant scripture that I had felt.
Jeremiah.
In Jeremiah. That was a big scripture for the church, but even outside the church was something that I had felt God call me to stable the plant here in Joburg, which didn't make sense for me. I never wanted to live in Joburg. I only ever saw Joburg as a stepping stone to go play in Europe one day, if I'm honest. So I'm in Cape Town, I'll play in Joburg, and then I'll go to Europe. And then God said, stay. And at the same time, to give context, because I think scripture is important, I want you guys to hear like exactly what I felt God say, is is it Habakkuk? I think it might be in Habakkuk. There's a guy named Zerubbabel, and the Lord says to him, and you, Zerubbabel, I will use as my signet ring. And the image I had was that, so a signet ring is something you put on your finger, and when they used to send letters, they'd take the signet ring and stamp it on the letter so you could see who the letter came from. And the image I had at that moment, and I really felt God spoke it, and I think he did accomplish this in many ways, but was that he was going to use me as his signet ring to stamp his authority into football. And that was what God spoke right at the beginning of my career. And I was like, okay, God, I'm going to hold on to this. And then this word came to stable plant, and it kind of superseded that signet ring, but I always knew that God had spoken that. And God never ever said, Jesse, don't play football. He never ever said football is bad. He never ever said, he never even really said that this football thing is an idol. Like, he allowed me to figure that out. But holding on to the word of stable plant led me to kind of step away from football. And I was in a moment where I went, God, like this doesn't make sense, but you've spoken this thing. Fast forward to 2024. So that was 2020 when God spoke the signature in scripture. 2024, the same guy, I think probably 2 passages of scripture later. And it's funny how sometimes we read certain passages and we don't continue reading. If you continue reading,
like
it
I got
says,
it, I stop.
yeah, exactly. Okay, I'll stop there. He says to the same person, to Zerubbabel, he says, in those days, I will shake the heavens and the earth. And one of my favorite Bible scholars, Matthew Henry, he writes a commentary on the scripture, and he says, and I've shared this in other spaces as well, that God often shakes the heavens and the earth to establish the things that cannot be shaken. And all of a sudden I was like, whoa, God, okay. I feel like you've shaken my life. I feel like, I don't know, I'm lost, I'm shaken, I don't know what's going on. But actually, I think in the season, in God's kindness, because God does work things for good, in his kindness, he was shaking my life to establish the things in my life that cannot be shaken. And now I go, sure, the foundations that I have now, as a husband, call it a leader at church, as a friend, as a father, I would never have had I not allowed God to shake my world a bit, And that's not to say that everything that is bad is from God. It's not God intentionally going, I want to shake your world. But I think God in his kindness, as he works things for good, sometimes God will shake. And to the question of, what could be next in my career, I'm not sure where I am, overthinking. Maybe God is shaking your world to establish things that cannot be shaken, And maybe that's the perspective that we need to have.
It's really good. Yeah. Okay. Shoot away, guys. Any more? I'm not going to ask any more because
I have a question.
I've got so many.
I have a question. There was something you said in the beginning where you said you were so consistent with soccer that you lost relationships.
Yeah.
And it's a 2-part question. How did you rekindle some of those relationships? Because you did say you lost a bit of family and you stopped talking to them.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with the mental loneliness, knowing that you put a sport ahead of relationships where community builds a lot of character?
Yeah.
So I just want to understand, how did that work for you?
Yeah, so I'll say as the foundation, my theology on community was terrible. So and like I said, my walk with Jesus was very convenient, so like a convenient Christianity, I'd call it, until probably I was 19, 20, and I was on my own, and COVID hit, and I was like, God, I have nobody. I'm not playing football because we can't play. Like, my family's not here. I don't have a church. I have nobody.
Theology on community.
Yeah. Anyway, so my theology on community was really bad. That influenced me to pursue all other things. And when I say family, my immediate family have always been super supportive.
Yeah.
So I didn't lose any immediate family, and even like extended family. I don't think anybody was outright like offended with me.
Yeah. Just proximity.
But I know, looking back, that I did not place any value in the relationships I had. I placed so much more value in football. Now looking back, I think the way God has created us is there's a desire for community. So one of the ways that I got back into community was actually after COVID. I was so desperate to see people. It wasn't even like a well thought out strategy to try and rekindle relationships. It was just actually like something deep within me, in who God has created me to be, was yearning to like be in community with people that I couldn't shake, So that's actually why I came to Urban Life, because all the other churches I looked at weren't having in-person services. And even in that, it's a beautiful story, right? What I saw as a fatal flaw for me in not being able to establish relationships God worked for good, in that at a point in my life when I really needed it, I found this place, and that's been a big part of my story. And then outside of that, I think I've just had to be intentional about, not apologizing, because you don't want to make much of a situation that some people might not even really have been thinking about. It might have just been my own internal battle, but being intentional about, checking in with people, following up with people, and like you said, proximity, and at the same time, you can't please everybody. So, like I have family all over the world, but I'm not as close to them as I am with like my church family. And that's not because I don't love my family as much as my church family, but proximity is important, So I don't know if that kind of answers a bit of the question.
Okay, I think maybe to not wrap it up, but one of the questions that I was thinking about is, Jesse, you've played in teams, you've been part of church. How do you call the people that are around you, that are your peers, up? Especially when things get tough and it's easy to want to go into the, no, things aren't working out, and the group think, if I can put it that way.
Yeah. Sure, it's a tough one, and there's many different answers, but I think I'll say this. One of the biggest, again, I'll say revelations, but just journey God has had me on is time and time again, I've gone to God and been like, oh, I'm really disappointed that I've had to retire from football. And then a second time, retire from football again. Well, I'm really, like, was it not enough?
Sorry, I laugh because I remember that stuff.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, God, it was not enough for me to retire once. Like, I felt like the opportunity to go back, and even in that, there was a beautiful story, but we'll leave that for another day. Time and time again, gone to God and be like, I've been really disappointed with the outcome. And even into those situations being like, not only is the outcome disappointing, but also my circumstances look pretty dire. Like, I'm not earning enough, or, I can't afford this, or there's this relationship that's struggling. And time again, I felt God say that he's less worried about what I'm doing than he is about who I'm becoming. And in all of that, my encouragement to people would be to ask the question, like, who am I becoming and who is God calling me to be, rather than what am I doing? Because I think God can use you where you're at. Yes, I do believe he places specific gifts and callings in your heart, and he wants to use that to, build his kingdom and build his church. But I think that's less important than who you're becoming. And if you can be honest and walk a journey with God and allowing him to form you into the person that you're meant to be, it really does not matter where that person is, because he's going to use that person, So to the people around me that may be struggling with, tough situations, may not see, the promise, or may not be able to see what they would want to see, I'd say I think as much as God is a kind father and he wants to give you the desires of your heart, I think he's less worried about what your life looks like and more worried about who you're becoming. And he'll use that.
Are you asking how does he build, like, team dynamics, or?
Well, I think that's part of it as well. But I'm just saying as well, like, within a team, right? When the mentality potentially is like exhausted, or it's...
Or how do you lift?
How do you lift the room, even when you're tired as well? But the becoming part is quite important as well.
Yes.
Because if I'm thinking about it, you're not necessarily just looking at what's happening around you.
Yes.
It's looking forward and being like, okay, this is where I am now, but this is where, God has me going.
I'm still learning how to grow teams, so I'm completely honest. I'm really learning, and I don't consider myself the best at growing teams, but what I do believe God has graced me to do is to love people. So, I think
that's true.
Without being overly practical, I'd say, listening to people is really important. Like, people just want to be heard, and giving people time. So in those situations, sometimes not even about lifting people up, but like going down to their level, and just listening to them where they're at. And then it's just loving people, which I think is that consistency, is that showing up, it's that asking how they are, it's that, and I'm terrible with my phone, so it doesn't even have to be via phone, but on a Sunday when I'm talking to someone, I really try to be present and really try to listen to them. And when I'm not sure how to necessarily think of like a good strategy on how to build this team, I really just try to love the people,
Yeah, I think having been on the other side of you, it feels like you're the big brother in this relationship. But
no ways.
Although I'm older than you, I'm older than Jessica, just so you know. But it's his ability to come at your level, like the way you just love people, you inspire people to be different. I think you just do it naturally. It's around your table, it's around your room, it's around your spaces. It's going, how do you lift people up? I think you're not you're not like me. You're not the loudest. But you carry a lot of weight. That's for sure. It's in your weightiness that it encourages the room to be.
I have a question.
Oh, I was gonna wrap up, guys.
Sister Ndlovu.
So
I
it's
can be here forever.
No, you can wrap up.
Sister Ndlovu.
I wanted to ask, how do you now basically shift your mind and your heart to what God wants for you? Because if he's like, I want you to dream hope, but then your dreams and your hope don't come to pass, and it's like, God, then why did you tell me to dream in the first place?
Yes.
So how do I go, okay, dreaming. God?
Yeah. Sure. Tough question. I'll say both as a person, but also the season I'm in. As a person, I'm not the most visionary. I can have big dreams and goals, but I'm not the person who's going to come into a room and going to capture your heart with a vision. I am more so a person that's very content with where I'm at. But in this season as well, I have felt God teach me that tomorrow has enough worries about itself, you know? And that's why I think I was kind of punching the point home around who you're becoming. Because I think in this season, God is teaching me that, yes, it's important to have vision, and yes, it's important to have dreams. And I think we shouldn't allow our dreams to die. But I think in the everyday, showing up, being consistent, focusing on what God's placed in our hands, what He's trusted us with. I think in this season, I'm learning that that's, for me right now, is more important than trying to predict what God's going to do, you know. God's going to do what He's going to do, with or without me. But what He's requiring of me in this season is to, I guess, be grateful for the little that I have, but steward that well. You know, what does it look like to steward that well? Which I know doesn't really answer your question, but it is, when I've been asked those questions, and when I've asked those questions, because I've, in a vulnerable state, in the month before Zach passed away, I felt God call me to dream again. And literally a month later, my son dies, and I go, okay, God, either I heard you wrong, or I don't know. So dreaming for me it's been a difficult thing, but in this season, I feel God is teaching me that perhaps, you know, yeah, let me not say anything controversial, but perhaps it's better for me in this season to...
There's no place you should say controversial things.
No, I think the world is full of dreamers, and we celebrate the visionaries and the dreamers, but we don't celebrate the people who are content with God's given them, you know.
Can I say something on that God spoke to me earlier, actually? Because I think I fall dangerously into that category. What God is, I feel like was saying to me is, I actually thought of New Year's resolutions, because I was looking at some things that I had written and where I want to go, and I'm like, it's a completely different world than where I live. And we do all these dreams. Like, I want to be here, I want to, so...
And there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But we lack commitment to the process. And you can be here, like, to make it very practical. Yeah. You can go, Life Campus, what am I going to be doing next year? And all of these, and I'm thinking, this is where I'm going to go. For me, you know, I look back in the year, a lot of it involved ministry, obviously, and Blaze, and Life Kids, and Next Gen, and all of those things. And then you're dreaming all of these things, but you absolutely drop everything that's in your hands. And what's the point? There's I agree with you. I don't think it's that controversial. I think we need to become more, and that comes from a dreamer. More people, and we need to become people that are committed to the process. And it links with everything you've been saying. It's like it's a mind shift. I'm not just gonna live in my dream world. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna be consistently good. And
sometimes that's the most difficult thing, to be honest.
Well, to you it seemingly comes natural. For us it's a fight, bruv. So yeah.
So my question is, am I supposed to say hi?
You can.
Oh, it's informal. Just say whatever.
So my question is, straight after giving up soccer, did you feel a sense of shame, like within yourself, or did you feel like people were now wondering, but you? I mean, you're the guy. You're the soccer guy. You were supposed to do big things. You know.
Yes.
Did you feel a sense of shame, and then did you also at some stage maybe struggle with being outside and being seen again? Did you feel like you needed to hide at some stage?
That's a great question.
And how did you overcome?
I'd say that the biggest piece of shame I felt was the fact that I promised Wanga that I'd take him to the World Cup as my spiritual advisor, but that never happened.
Tough.
Yes, so definitely. And even as you're asking, you're uncovering things that I didn't expect I was going to share, but like, it's great that you're asking. So for a long time, I cared way too much what people think, you know, and not everybody would know that. But one of the beautiful things I think in this season is God's also teaching me to care less about what people think. And sometimes I care too little, because that's just not helpful. But I would say, and part of it is an identity struggle, part of it is shame. So the identity struggle was I didn't necessarily know how to show up as Jesse, who's not the footballer. And even though, like Wanga will know, I always declared that I'm more than a footballer. But when push came to shove, it was very difficult to show up and talk about things outside of football. You know, you meet, I don't know, ex-colleagues or old friends down the road, and they're like, have you been watching the World Cup? because to them, you're the football guy, you know, and I'm like, I don't want to talk about football. Not that I don't like it, but anyway, so that's one element, was the identity, and that was tough. But then I'd say the biggest form of shame for me was actually in dealing with my football community, because they thought I was crazy, to be honest. Like,
yeah, they did.
So Wanga mentioned Stellenbosch, and we can talk about it openly now, but in a season where things were sucking for me at the current club I was at and I wasn't playing, Stellenbosch came and made me an offer 3 times, and each time I said to them no, because I believe that God had called me to stay here. But the rest of the football community didn't know that. They just saw Jesse Don says no to Stellenbosch, or Jesse Don retires, or, you know, they didn't have all that context. And I still live in elements, I would say, of that shame of learning how to show up in the football space boldly and confidently, knowing that not everybody has the context that you guys might have now, if that makes sense. Yeah, so I'd say that's probably my answer. I think there's an identity shift, and like I said, it's a same devil, new level thing for me. It keeps coming back, and I keep needing to work through it.
What helped you overcome that? What's helping you deal with that?
Yeah.
What's getting you outside from hiding, from whatever?
I think it's practice, eh? I think it's those initial conversations are tough, but people only ask you once. So people ask you, why did you retire? And I'll say, this is my story. And that's a moment for God to, you know, put his glory on display, really, and that's beautiful. But then once they've asked you once, they don't ask you again. And in your mind, you overthink everything. You're like, oh, this is going to be terrible. People are going to think I'm weird. People are going to think that I just gave up or I wasn't good enough. But actually, you have that conversation once, and then it's done, and it's easier than you thought. So I think there's a practice of actually just showing up and doing the thing that feels difficult. And that kind of peeled away the shame. But then also, I think I've been relying on God to help me strip away some of that shame, because I think guilt can sometimes be helpful. So guilt is that inner feeling that we know we've done something wrong, which can be good and can lead to repentance. But shame becomes a part of our identity, and that's not helpful. So in the places where I felt guilty, I can deal with that. But where there's shame, I actually think you need God to come and help strip pieces of those identity. So I think A, it's been a practice. And then B, it's been, hey, God, I'm really struggling with this. Can you help me, remind me of who I am? You know, give me scripture to declare over myself. Surround me with people who speak life over me. Give me Wanga to lead a podcast and enter with all these nice words, you know, to celebrate me. Which
I think that I think is a really good number 3, because I know your circle. You've never been at least they are not your football community, and where you might feel shame. They're not the loudest voice in your life.
No,
I know God is.
Yeah.
And I also know that you surround yourself with people that wouldn't let you sit in that.
No.
I mean, it is terrible, because we'll make fun of you, but then we'll build you up.
Yeah.
And
I love it.
You're surrounded by people that will not let you live in that constant, you know, whether it's Kelsey, whether it's Kevin, or and Cam, and all these guys will just beat that thing out of you.
Yeah.
Because and I think it's one of the most incredible things that God did in your life in that stuff, is that you didn't want anything to do with community.
Yeah.
It puts you in a community, and then
the community is what
you go through the worst times of your life, and you're held by that community. It's not that God did that to you, but He's set up things that would.
One more thing I just want to say. I feel like it just kind of like, it may or may not be a Holy Spirit moment, but so the place where I felt the most shame is the place where I've also seen God use me the most powerfully to invite people to church. So Wanga will know, and many people will know, that I love inviting footballers to church, and I always do it because I really want them to experience the love of Christ, right?
But so many celebrities through you, bro.
But the reason why I'm saying that is because that place was difficult, it was shameful for me. But in that, pressing into that place of shame, I've seen footballers come to church and find community. And the reason why I'm saying it is because I don't know what your shame might be, but I believe if you press into that, God could use your shame, that deep, dark place, to really use you the most powerfully, you know? Same with grief, same with trauma, same with whatever it might be that you've been through. If we allow God to use it, He will use you powerfully in those spaces. So, I don't know, press into that if you can. Because I've seen it in my football, as we're talking now. The place where I felt most shame was the place where God challenged me the most to invite footballers to church. And in doing so, I've seen the most breakthrough for those footballers, you know, in finding community. So yeah, I don't think we should run away from shame. We should give it to God and allow God to use us powerfully through it.
Okay, guys, we really can go on. And maybe we'll do a part 2 if you guys want Jesse to come around again. But that's why I said at the beginning, feels like a, you'll get out of this. Jesse said a lot. You'll get out of this as much as you're willing to take out of this moment and go work hard. These conversations have been incredibly beneficial to me. So I want to say thank you for me personally, for this, for your time. But to you guys, I want to leave you. Actually, you've asked a lot of questions. I want to ask you 2 questions. And then I'll answer because I was thinking of the answer as we were going. But I want you guys to leave with an action or something to do, something to be able to practice. And I want to know, what will you do differently?
What would I do differently?
No, not you. You're done.
You looked at me as you said it. I was like,
is what will you do differently from this conversation? Where is that mind shift, heart shift? What's the thing that you're going to do differently going into the week? So I'd say if you've got a journal or something, write that down because it helps, and then you'll remember it, and then you'll go. And then what I'd love for you to do on the back of that is to find, I don't know, Joy, you can help me with this. Podcast people will do an outro at some point, is find a partner, share it with them and say, hey, okay, this is one of the most helpful things with Jesse is that what I've done with him is that we always close the loop. It's like, oh, we spoke about this, what have you done? Where are we at, when we spoke about this, where are we at? And so find a partner that will help you go, okay, this is a decision I've made today. On 6th of August in a podcast room, I said, I'm going to do this one thing differently. And 1, 2, 3.
And I'll do the same, actually.
For me, this might change, so I'll come see you afterwards if it does change. But I think that thing that you said on being consistently good is the framework of like going. I think I fall into that trap of living for the great moments, for pulpit moments, and all of these. I'm asking myself, how can I be consistently good? I think on a very practical note, I think my devotional moments need to move beyond. I'm waiting for the great moments, but to okay, I want to be consistently good at that. So I don't know. I'm obviously processing it as I go, but that's the thing I highlighted to go. That's what I'm gonna do differently on the back of this conversation. So love for you guys to do the same. Write it down. Get a partner. Joy will help you partner up, and then talk to each other about it, and then go. Next week, follow up with each other. Okay, how are we doing in that thing that you said? And please make it practical. Make it like the thing that you're gonna do tomorrow, not like next year I'm going to do this. So what are you going to do tomorrow from this conversation? Otherwise, we're all talking theory the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done. Cool. Cheers.
Cheers.
You guys are amazing.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Jesse. Bye.